Have you ever seen a new watch release that you think, wow, I want to buy one of those, but for whatever reason you then choose not to? But then every time you see a picture of it or a photo, or you come across the brand or that particular watch again, you think, oh, I do really like that. And then eventually you realize, oh, okay, it's time to buy one of these. I obviously like it. And you go onto their website and then you come to the realization that you can't buy it because it's sold out. That's exactly what happened to me with this HZ Series 1 watch. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And it really happened to me because when HZ, a micro brand from Australia, released one of their first watches, I saw it, I saw reviews of it, I saw pictures of it, and I thought that is a brilliant looking watch. I really like it. I like the idea that it was also an Australian micro brand, but to be honest, it was the design of the watch that really captured my attention. And every time I saw a picture of it or I saw a new review of it, I decided, oh, yes, I think maybe I should buy one of those. But there were two things that held me back, two things that stopped me actually making that purchase. Firstly, it's a Quartz watch. Now, I don't have anything against Quartz watches, but I know what I'm like with Quartz watches, and whenever I've bought one, I've ended up liking it but not wearing enough, and I've ended up selling it. So I tend not to buy too many Quartz watches because of that. And secondly, it's a titanium watch. And again, I don't have anything against titanium watches, but in my own experience, every time I've owned a titanium watch, I've liked it and I've worn it a little bit, but it's ended up leaving my collection. So I try not to buy too many Quartz watches or titanium watches because I know that there's the likelihood of them being sold is rather high. And this watch, although I like the look of it, was a Quartz titanium watch, and I didn't think it would end up staying in my collection. But I kept seeing those pictures and I kept thinking, this might actually be something special. And I'm also always on the lookout for a watch that might change my opinion about things, because I would love my opinions about titanium watches and Quartz watches to change, because it would open up so many other watches to me. So eventually, when I saw enough photos, enough reviews, I decided, okay, I need to get over myself and I need to purchase this watch. But it was sold out, and it was sold out a long time since when I actually made that decision to purchase it. In fact, the second watch had come out, and I think they're even going to be starting to work on a third watch. But I was really disappointed that I didn't get hands on with this first version. But then, well, like this has happened to me a number of times, I saw it pop up on the used market, and I saw it pop up at a reasonable price in very good condition. And I thought, well, I like this watch, I need to buy it. And I now own it. So I want to show it off in a little bit more detail, even though it's not currently available anymore. And because they are now popping up on the used market, they might become available to you, and you may be making a decision like I was, should I buy it? And if you do, well, the more videos about it, the more vision of these watches, the better, the more that I can sort of do to help that decision and give you some insight into the watch, the better. And plus, I just like talking about watches. So let's talk a little bit more about this watch, because when it did come out, it came out in a number of different colors. There was a black one, a blue one, a green one, and a burgundy one, and they cost 349 Australian dollars. And they, of course, are all the same size, because the case of this watch is 38.5 millimeters. It's only 10.2 millimeters tall or high, has a lug-to-lug of 45.7 millimeters, standard lug width of 20 millimeters, and on one of the straps that it came with, it is only 46.8 grams. This is making it sit very nice onto my 17 centimeter wrist, both the height of this watch, the dimensions of this watch, and the weight of this watch. But it also has to do with the curvature of that case. It really does sit down nicely onto wrist. And I'll come back to that case in a little bit more detail after I talk about the dial of this watch. And as we look at the dial of this watch, let me talk about some of the specifications to keep in the back of our mind, because this is a Swiss Ronda Quartz movement. It is grade 5 titanium. That crystal there is sapphire. It has 100 meters of water resistance, and it is a watch that has been designed to be an everyday watch because it is nice and legible, it is easy to wear, It is easy to look at the time, but it's also easy to see the day and the date with those windows on the dial. But let's dive into that dial more, because it is the dial that really did initially capture my attention, and it is what is drawing me to wearing this watch more and more. So I talk about details in watches holding my attention, capturing my attention and drawing me to watches, and this watch has some details that I particularly like. You'll see that center circle is a brushed steel look to it. Those two windows break it up with a little bit of red text on there saying 32 Hz. It is surrounded by a blue sort of inner chapter ring, which is raised. It has lines on them, and it has those integrated numbers. Those numbers are loomed, the hands are loomed as well. I was expecting the hands to be loomed. I wasn't expecting the numbers to be loomed, but it is nice when you do turn the lights off to see that illumination, which helps with that ongoing legibility throughout the night. Beyond that blue ring is an internal angled chapter ring with the minute markers. There's no other branding on the dial of this watch. There is just that little bit of printing on that chapter ring and that red touch just above that porthole date window at the 6 o'clock. The hands themselves are all polished. Loom, as I mentioned, making it a little bit easy to see after the dark, and a nice little tip of red at the end of that second hand. It has a fat piece of sapphire crystal covering that dial, which then helps to keep that height down, and then we transition into that titanium case, and there is a multi-finish titanium case, and the majority of the case is brushed, apart from a high polish chamfered edge running all the way along the sides of the case. But as you look at the side of the case, as I showed you earlier, it angles down considerably, which really helps hug down onto your wrist. It is an unguarded crown as well with the HZ logo. It is a screw down crown, assisting with that 100 meters of water resistance. But one of the biggest things that stood out to me, and I think it was slightly unexpected because I wasn't seeing the rear of the case all that often in pictures, was this interesting HZ logo. It's almost like an enamel that is set in there. It is a green color with the sort of steel HZ logo. It's something a little bit different. I don't think I've seen this particular style of caseback all that often. Surrounding that is a little bit of information saying it is a Swiss quartz and it is titanium with that 100 meters of water resistance, and that it is a 32.768 Hz watch. One of the benefits of buying used sometimes is that you often get additional accessories too. With this particular purchase, I got two original straps and I got an aftermarket strap. And the aftermarket strap is actually really good from the color perspective, how it suits the watch, but the actual original straps themselves are also very nice. They have branded buckles and they're very soft. Now, because I know what I'm like with quartz watches and I know what I'm like with titanium watches, they too tend to leave my collection fairly quickly. I'm very interested to see how long this one stays in my collection, whether it stays long-term, short-term, or even possibly forever. At the moment, I'm enjoying it, I'm wearing it, I'm liking it, and I'm definitely keeping an eye on this company to see what comes out next. Thanks so much for watching. Here's a couple other videos you could possibly watch next.